Welcome to the Knife Show, where we dissect the human psyche and society. My name is Denzel Mensa, and I'm an ENFJ.
And my name is Joyce Meng, and I'm an INFJ. And today we'll be talking about how technology is shaping the way our minds work and whether it's for the good of humanity or not. We have our guest today, Lilette, and she has ENTJ preferences. And we're going to let you start off the discussion today.
Hello, my name's Lilette, and I'm really excited to be on the show. I think Joyce and Denzel, we can chat it up forever. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
We met Lilette through a profiling session. As you guys can see, she's an ENTJ. And yeah, I guess you can say that we kind of took a liking to her. And after a few coaching sessions that she's had, both with the three of us, and then also with just Joyce, then we thought that it would be a good idea to have her on a Knife Show episode, especially because she's familiar with this show. And Lilette also had an interesting topic that we thought that we could probably tackle. And I'm curious as to what made you start with that topic to begin with, like what sparked that interest?
I think so it all kind of comes down to, what am I going to do for the next X number of years? That was really like the initial topic for myself. And part of that is honestly taking in how the world is going and external forces on that to make sure, that my, like where I'm headed, I'm not going to be blindsided by something. We make choices every single day. And one of those micro choices lead up to what you're going to be later. So I think it's really important to consider all of these different factors that are going to have a significant influence in where you end up. And really, I think one of the biggest interests I have is having complete control over your future. I really feel like we do have the ability to control our futures. I strongly believe that. But we can turn a blind eye to certain things that we do on the daily that prevent us from reaching that. And yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of, oh, well, I just kind of ended up here. Like I really believe that you can be very precise with where you're going to be and confidently say in 10 or 20 years, this is where I'm going to be. So if you just consider these things and take in all of these really big factors, and you don't have to know all of the details, right? It's just really knowing like what the big waves are, like if you're swimming, what the currents are. So yeah, that's essentially where it came from. And if you're considering a 10 or 20-year plan or greater, we're in this time now that we really need to consider things like, what do we consume on the daily? What kind of person do we want to be? Because what's that saying? Like, you are what you eat. Same, I kind of think of like the brain as this mentally, you are what you consume mentally too. So,
Yeah, and we spend roughly 20 years of our lifespan on technology, so it does shape a wide part of our lives. I think a lot of us spend as much time with our spouse as we do online, and so it shapes us. It's like one of they say you are the sum of the top 5 people you know. Technology is probably one of those people you know really well in the aggregate.
Yeah.
And so I guess we can kind of tell how our minds are being shaped by technologies, also by how we're shaping AI, as a lot of what AI learns is from our brains. And so it's actually a reflection of our collective unconscious. And so in a way, whatever it generates shows what we're paying attention to,
Yeah, it kind of becomes this echo chamber, right? Like you see, and that's actually what I'm not going to reveal what I have in mind just yet because I feel like that's bad luck. But I'm really interested, especially in the artistic space, right? Because we've divested so much over the years where artists find it harder and harder to make a living. And it's so much easier for corporations, for example, to tap into AI and get what they need. Let's say like concept art, etc. And where do all those jobs go? You know. So my husband's an artist, and so I care very much about these kind of issues of, well, is this actually really good for humanity? And I think it's personal for me, right? It's like, is this what's going to happen to my spouse, or his family is a family full of artists, for example. So yeah, just seeing the actual impact that it has on people I know, you know, and maybe it's like this NI parent sort of thing, like kind of watching out for their future in a way, but it's only like within my own interests. So where it's like, oh, I'm doing a good thing because it like includes them. I think art is a really good example of like, hey, how are we going to what are we going to do now, and how's that going to affect us later? Because it's affecting artists right now, so it's actually a very relevant and good, at least concrete example for those who are like new to the topic.
Yeah, there's that quote that's trending about how I wanted AI to do my laundry and like fold my clothes, not that AI to do the art and to do the writing so that I can do all of those chores instead. So it is causing a crisis among creative people. People also call it the Pandora's box too. Once it's been open, they wonder how you're going to regulate it because it's open source. And so you can try to regulate it, but someone's going to find a way to go around that. So there's so much dialogue around it. And it's going to be one of those fork in the road revolutions. Like learning about the internet, or the internet being introduced into the world, created a huge revolution. And so AI is the new revolution. That all brings us back to technology and how that's affecting us. And so I think that we do gain a sense of instant gratification, and AI art does show that we as a society like instant. And so our brains are set up for that. Even our dopamine structures, the way that we check our phones, how long we spend there, it's gripping. And yeah, it shows something about how we're being wired around technology.
I love those thoughts, Joyce. I love that. Because the dopamine hit, that's where we can kind of draw that parallel again between like clean eating, clean thinking. I was just talking to my husband about this on a car ride. We were talking about we go around, we can identify when someone's not physically healthy. But there's mentally unhealthy people too, and not in terms of like mental health necessarily. I'm talking about intellect. Actual free critical thinking. That kind of thinking. Are you strong? Are you anemic? Is your brain anemic in that area? It's not necessarily even about like feeling good about yourself. Like that's a very important part of a healthy brain is that. And I feel like we are concerned about that in that arena. But how about like the percentage of stupid people in the world? That is so important, because if our governments are run off of like the number of people who are voting, and there are more stupid people voting than yesteryear, and that number keeps on increasing, like all of this stuff that's happening, it might start out as, oh, you know, profits and like corporate greed. Like it can easily swing into, okay, well, now the populace is just plain stupid and we could do what we want. And generations of that. You know, I don't know what studies have been done, but people's ability to make good decisions, not just for themselves and their own lives, but for generations to come. You know, are we seeing that today? Are we seeing generation over generation thrive? Or are we seeing a decline in that? Or a stagnation, you know, which I think is even worse.
I wanted to ask, how would you two say that you most use technology in our modern day? And then how's that in particular affecting you?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of our social connections are, I mean, this very call, for example, you know, a ton of our social, what's it called? The third spaces are online now. You know, there's not a whole lot of third spaces. I can't even really imagine what that was like. You know, we have generations that have never really been in a third space besides maybe like, I don't know, extracurricular activities that are like controlled spaces. You know, there are more of these connections happening online. So that's definitely an area that is dominated by tech now, you know. And we kind of touched on this before. I don't know if it was like recorded or not, but the whole, you are the 5 people you know. So yeah. Who do you hang out with? Do you even really know them online? But that's besides the point. Like that's just one of the things. I think the other thing is actually how we're in our houses a lot. I'd say looking the past like few hundred years, right? We went from spending a lot of time outside to now we're just kind of like our lives get, you know, if we were to map our activities over the course of our lives,
Right.
I think it'd be kind of creepy actually, you know, if you've ever done this thing where you think, oh, what am I going to be like at the end of my life? I wish I could get a stat sheet like you would get from, I don't know, just aggregate data on just, hey, by the way, like that, if I were to ask, if I were just to show up at the pearly gates, I don't know what actually happens later, but if I were to show up, my personal request would be, give me my stats, please. I would like to inform myself on what I did like all that time, you know. And I think it'd be really interesting. It's like one of those like tracker things that with the cursors, like the mouse cursors, and then people are marketing, people are tracking where people click, mapping out where we've gone in our lives. Some people don't even leave their state. It just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. So, especially with the advent of virtual technology, that you know, that's a long way coming, but that will even like, then people won't even leave their homes. You know.
Yeah.
It has the potential to shrink to that much, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I was just thinking back to like COVID times and how everybody was already like trapped in their homes and everything, but because of technology, then, you know, they were able to speak on calls like this, and, you know, also a lot of them really got a lot of stuff technically like done in a way. Like their TikTok started to blow up because they were spending all this time like trying to find different ways to like, connect in that sense. And so that's like, you know, that's like one thing that's like, oh, because then I feel like, especially ever since that kind of like generation, then now a lot of people actually don't know how to speak to real life people. They spend all day on the computer or all day just like in group chats and stuff like that. And so and even just, you know, like on Twitter or something, like commenting on people's posts and then dehumanizing people, and the next thing you know, because they stay inside so much, it's like they're saying things behind a screen that they would have never said in real life. And so I think that's like really interesting. It's like, oh,
Yeah, that is kind of
even
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, like even with, for example, like some of my videos or whatever, sometimes like, people like post certain things and I'm like, wow, I really can't even imagine me like being in front of this person. Like if I was to, somehow like find their like IP address and, like show up over at their door. So I'm like, hey, you're the one who commented this on my video, right? Like I just wanted to see you like say it to me in person, like in real life and everything. I cannot see a person like going through with that because it's like, oh shoot, this is now a real person, not just somebody I was just watching on my screen and becoming like one of several comments like that I just see. Some of the stuff that I see on Twitter, I'm like, yeah, I never see people really like talk like this like in real life. And so now all of a sudden it's like, oh, because you're behind the screen, then you're speaking in this way. So in essence, yeah, technology, of course, it always goes both ways. It's like helping us a lot. There's a lot of benefits to
Yeah.
us, but it's also like harming us to an extent as well, like because it's causing a lot of people to like dehumanize. People spend a lot of time on Instagram and they think that, oh, because this person or these other people, everybody's only posting like their highlights and their amazing trips and all of that and their successes, and there's like, oh man, like I'm not living up to the standard that life should be. Like look at all of my Instagram friends and everything, they're all living lavish lives, and so I can only post when I'm doing something like lavish or whatever like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember seeing even recently a friend of mine, she came across this page, this YouTube channel of a woman who pretty much watches people's vlogs, and she notices how much they cap in them, as in like they pretty much like lie about certain things. So
Oh,
this,
that's
like notice things like, oh, this guy is saying that like he wakes up at like 5 a.m. to like do all of these things, but this guy lives in Nashville. So let's look this up. Well, the sun, like if you look in this video, the sun is already up. In Nashville, the sun doesn't come up until like 6:30 this. And
oh
so
my gosh, that's
this guy either he woke up at 5 a.m. like he's saying that he did, but then he waited until like 6:30 to actually start recording and all that because he wanted good lighting, or he's lying and he really doesn't wake up at this time. And then you can tell from this other video because boom, boom, boom. And then let's look at this woman. She says in this video, like, oh, this is a way to inspire our children. And she's supporting her husband who's like doing this like marathon race or whatever. And she goes through this whole thing, and pretty much she says that he ended up winning like second place. But then when I looked it up, he actually did not win second place. He won 32nd place. And, all of this stuff. And she's like, I don't know why people choose to lie just because like for things that we can just easily look up. And honestly, it's still inspiring. Like this man, he's probably like in his 40s, like near 50, and he's still like in great shape and everything. That's still inspiring to your kids. And, and she just started like breaking all this stuff down.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see like how much like people will do for their social media appearance and everything like that, and then how much they also like again like dehumanize others. And again, AI, so going on to that topic, like I'm spitballing a lot right here, but try to track with me. So yeah, sure, there's a lot of pros, like AI has helped with a lot of people, like if I had it back when I was in school, that would have been great. You're able to talk to Chat GPT, be able to get some ideas on certain things, even like rewrite like certain resumes and all of this type of stuff. So it's like, it's definitely helping out in several different ways if you know how to. But then also it's very interesting how much like AI is hurting a lot of people. Like right now, Google AI, if you search certain things and Google AI like translates certain, like it'll like generate an answer. And a lot of times those answers are inaccurate. Like I test that.
Oh yeah. I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, but people will like buy into that. And then also even like we don't know in this day and age like what's real and what's not, like quite literally. So going back to that whole critical thinking thing, we already see people grant certain things on social media. Like they'll see certain like thoughts on Twitter or something like that, or like they'll see like a video of something like 3 separate incidents happened that I have a group chat for my subscribers, and in one of them, So it's a main group chat called Ponder Palace, and then I'll have like branches to it. And in one of the branches, it's called Polemic Palace. And we were discussing, and in Polemic Palace, we discuss a whole bunch of like controversial taboo topics and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And the three threaded things, let's try saying that 3 times fast, three threaded things that had happened was a few months ago, somebody had created AI images of Taylor Swift, um, for lack of better terms, like getting wrecked necessarily by football teams and stuff like that. And that it was obviously fake at that point. So we then started talking about like, oh, how can we regulate AI in certain ways? Like, because Taylor Swift, like she was supposedly enraged. I personally don't know if she was really, really enraged or
Right.
she
Show
was
business.
enraged. Yeah, if she was just enraged because the Swifties were enraged. And maybe I shouldn't have said that because now Swifties. She was definitely just in case of the Swifties watching. I did not support the creation of those AI images. But that was a whole thing in of itself. However, just a couple weeks ago, Meg the Stallion, a video was circulating of her on Twitter, having sex. This time
Right.
it looked real. So people
Right.
are doing that. It was like a leaked sex tape. A lot of people were
Right.
like commenting, like, oh, she talks like all of this sex talk, like in her rap songs and everything like that. But look at how lazy she looks in it. Like they were critiquing her sexually. And everything. And then the thing is, she posted about how like it's definitely AI and she's pissed that people would even like go that far and it's going to be the last time that people mess with her, stuff like that. And a lot of people were commenting, "That's not AI. That's not AI." Until somebody found like the actual video and they put it like side by side of like it was a really like an actual video, and then the one next to it was where they like kind of like posted Meg the Stallion's face on top of it. But I'm wondering
Right.
how many people even saw that video, because people just see things on surface level and then now they go on like, oh my gosh, did you know that Meg the Stallion's like sex tape dropped and boom, boom.
Right.
And then the last thing that just happened this past week, because again, I brought that up in, Polemic Palace. So I'm like, okay, this is even different from the Taylor Swift thing. Like this is actually deceptive. Like people can actually believe that this is what's happening when it's not.
Yeah.
But then this last thing was Halle Bailey. So most people might know her as the recent Little Mermaid in the live action, the one who played in that. She has a boyfriend named DDG who has a Snapchat. And she did like DDG apparently like did that like Snapchat thing. Like there's a filter where it's like you put somebody else on the screen, like you like show the person, and then it's like an old man shows up behind you. And then so he did that with Hallie, and he's kind of like a troll type of prankster type of person. So he did that with Hallie, and then she was like, "Oh my gosh," because I guess like she thought that there was an old man behind her or whatever like that. And when she jumped in this specific video, it showed that Hallie was topless. So a lot of people were like, "Why would he put her like naked, whatever is like on the internet?" And then Halle Bailey and DDG were very firmly claiming that it was AI and it wasn't really them and all of that. And a lot of people could not really believe it, because again, like they're like, okay, did like are we now just blaming AI for like stuff that comes out? It again kind of reminds me like of even this whole thing that happened between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. If you weren't living under rock, Drake the rapper and Kendrick Lamar the rapper, they had a beef. They were going back and forth with each other and everything. And so like as their raps were like coming out, like Drake's raps especially were like leaking on Twitter, and people couldn't tell which ones were like really Drake versus like is this AI. And I was just thinking like, man, like celebrities can now claim that like, oh well, let me leak this, and if the majority of the public are saying like, oh, this is fire, then it's like, yeah, that's actually mine. And if the majority of the public are saying that it's trash, then it's like, oh, that's AI, guys. Like, no, that's not me. And we can do that with so many things. With DDG and Halle Bailey, it's like, okay, was it really AI? Or when they now made the video of, oh, this is the real video. Was it actually AI that showed them covered up or whatever like that? And you're saying this is the real video when it's really the reverse. And it just goes to this whole thing, like showing like, how do we know like what's real, what's not? Even again with the rappers, it's like, okay, a lot of people are having AI write their raps for them. So now it's like, wait, so anybody can just be a rapper now? How do we know that Drake? We already always talked about like, oh, Drake has ghostwriters, but like, is AI writing his raps now? We might never know. And it's really like giving a clamp onto artists in that way. And so now anybody can kind of be an artist. Literally, you can just go onto AI and then type in la 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 la, and then it'll steal other people's art from online or whatever and make something for you. And then you're like, voila. So then now people who actually take time to like draw this concept out and everything like that, actual artists that used to get paid like hundreds of dollars for it, they don't need to do that anymore. And sure, that benefits a lot of us who want to use that in like our thumbnails and all of that. But then at the same time, it's like, man, like, so where is all of this going? If we are now headed to a future where we can literally use AI to have Obama talking about how much he loves smoking crack and stuff like that, and it'll literally look like him, and AI is only going to get better.
I'm also a deep fake, and you should take care when you watch a video on the internet. See you soon.
And of course, it's something like that, we can be like, that's not really Obama. But if they make it like a little bit more believable and people just buy into it because they don't know how powerful AI is, then it's like, okay, is this really? And then if somebody's like claiming that they have proof that their partner abused them, and then they're showing video evidence, and then the partner's like, that's AI, they're trying to frame me. How do we know? Like, so it's so much stuff with technology that now, if you're not a critical thinker, like you were saying, Lilette, and if you don't know how far it can really go, and lastly, if you're not good at like just being uncertain, like we might never know if Halle Bailey was really topless in that video and they just made like a cover up video, or if she really wasn't topless in that video and whatever. We might never know, but you know what I'm saying? Like going in, that's kind of how I'm viewing a lot of the future in that way. Like just, yeah, when it comes to like AI, and then on top of that, like the people who've been lying on like motivational things. Yeah, I wake up at 5 a.m. No, sir, you wake up at around 6:45. And just
which is still decent.
Yeah, it's still good.
Still good, but
yeah, exactly. Like, so I don't know. All of that to say that, yeah, these thoughts on the future of how technology is impacting us as a society is very interesting. Everybody's dating on Tinder and everything like that, instead of like, so now they're afraid to go talk to a girl. Catfish has been a thing for a long time. Now imagine how much with AI, like you can cover up certain things with your faces on Instagram, and then when you meet the person in real life, it's like, ugh,
That's a really interesting point, actually, because like I have, we've all seen some kind of like apprehension towards tech as well. So, when one of my friends is like, oh, well, I want to date again, but and then someone inevitably just says, oh, how about the apps? And then they inevitably say, well, and then that apprehension starts rolling. Stuff like, I just don't really trust like what. So we've definitely been burned before, which I think is really good. I think it's really important to be burned, honestly, because, and maybe this is just like the SE kind of bit, but I think people just don't learn unless they are burned a lot of times. And so it's a really good reminder when stuff like this does happen. And I really do like that whole like people don't think twice, they don't verify. And also just, AI not being accurate. Because
you might not even know how to verify at this point.
Yeah.
There is no way to verify, yeah. Because even AI's winning real photography contests and no one can tell. There's no way.
Right. And so like maybe it is sparking conversations to critically think about these sorts of things, because AI is kind of this confrontation with reality, where people are asking very basic questions. Is this real? And that is it's not even the greatest critical thinking question, to be honest, because it's still yes or no. It's not as open-ended like a critical thinking question should be. But people should actually be saying instead, or asking themselves, what is this? That is a real critical thinking question. But I can forgive okay, is this real? Okay, we can at least start there. At least you're thinking. That's good. That's good. But people, like you said, Denzel, people don't even get to that point. So, it really comes down to catching up with tech, honestly, because tech is going to be moving forward. I do find it interesting how we say, or it's easy to say that technology is advancing, right? And maybe perhaps it's because it's measurable. But when it comes to, are we advancing? There are some measurable things like the base level of living. Less people are going hungry, those kind of measures. But when it comes to health, brain health, body health, I think body health is a little easier to measure. But brain health, honestly, I love the work that you've been doing, Joyce, with Dario, right? Because that's the one frontier we really haven't tapped into. And I think that is perhaps the key to catching up with technology, is understanding the brain. So, because we understand our bodies pretty well, but brain health, but that does kind of touch into kind of the eugenics area, right? Because when we start talking about stupid people and smart people, that's when it can get really dicey. It's easier to talk about like overweight people and fit people, a lot easier. But when we start talking about intellect, that's when it starts to get dicey for obvious reasons. But I think we do need to start thinking about it. I think that does need to be a conversation, because I'm concerned about, I'm concerned about that. I think there's a lot of people who, and you don't necessarily start out stupid, right? Like, you can kind of numb yourself to things in the same way that your muscles can be worked out, exercised to get stronger. I think the same thing with the brain. So
Yeah. There are a lot of movements on brain health and how it's correlated with movement. And so because people have desk jobs and we do a lot of technology and we don't move a lot when we use it, the IQ scores of people have actually been dipping, even though their living conditions have gotten better because of the rise in technological advances. And like when we think about social media, there's that saying, empty barrels make the loudest noise. And so people who aren't as happy in their lives or want to compare, they might be posting false news so that they can look good in the eyes of others for that dopamine hit. And when it comes to the realm of romance, a lot of AI is taking care of things, such as a lot of breakup messages these days are written by AI. So we're becoming lazier with how we're being able to be nicer to people's feelings. We're outsourcing it to someone else. And even a lot of people are using AI for Valentine's Day gifts for their lovers. We even did an experiment in a group chat with Denzel and friends. We got AI to write type poems for each of the types. And I thought I'd read a few lines from the INTJ one to show you how good it actually is in a scary way. So it's like, how do you seduce the types? And then ChatGPT's take was write a really nice poem. And it's, in a mind secluded tower, there resides a silent power, an architect of unseen schemes, immersed in thoughts and lofty dreams. Driven by a ceaseless thirst for knowledge, they are immersed. In shadows, they find clarity, solitude. In solitude, solidarity. And so it's actually...
That's pretty good.
And so it's interesting. There are even like AI dating apps. Like there's one called Replica where you can be in relationship with AI. And so people are wondering they're going to go from dating apps to just dating AI for certain people.
Right. And you know, I do believe in technology providing us smaller baby steps, right? Like if you think about, or okay, unpack that. What does that mean? So we can think of technology as making step size smaller and smaller and smaller. So one step back in the Stone Age is live or die. Well, now that step is a lot smaller because you're likely to pass the live stage. Okay, cool. And so there's a lot of steps, and you know, obviously we have longer lives because of it, but it also means for the same amount of steps, you don't really have to take yourself very far. You're clearing a lot of these really monumental milestones of our species with such little energy. But then also, like, what's the motivation to move forward beyond that, beyond comfort? And I think that's, you know, that's what I'm wary of, really, is comfort. I feel like is actually the something that kills brilliance, you know. That might actually be, yeah, a very controversial statement, but I find that a lot of the greats were pretty lonely people, or angry people, or frustrated people, or sad people. These were people who needed something, truly needed something. And they reached for it, not because they were in a state in which that they had to, so in order to live. And that, you know, that's very powerful motivation. Yeah.
I was thinking about how Joyce had mentioned, you know, people using AI to like, I'm not one of these people, by the way, so I'm not making an excuse for them. I want to put that disclaimer there. But people using AI to like pick out gifts for their partners, or, you know, write poetry or whatever like that. And I feel it pretty much struck the thought of like how AI can be very much used to teach us, or it could be like just a comfort zone for us to like be lazy. It's kind of like when the calculator came out, and maybe like people, they use the calculator so much that they literally don't even know how to add without the calculator, like what's 5 plus 25, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you at least know how to do it, if you at least know the process, then it's all right to use a calculator, which is why in class they kept on telling us not to use calculators, because they wanted us to know how to do it ourselves, and then we can go to like AI, which is how a lot of like tools that we even use like in real life, like that's how it kind of is. Like, okay, well, before, you know, I teach you how to use it this way, like actually know how to do this. Like I know somebody who said, instead of like just using a rice cooker, like, let me teach you how to actually make rice, in case if you don't have a fancy rice cooker to be able to like do that. So these kind of things. So with AI, it's like, I feel like one good thing that could come from that, if people are willing to do that, is like, okay, fine, use it to help you pick out your partner's Valentine's Day gift, that, you know, one time, whatever like that. But then actually study the method behind it. It's like, oh, I get how like this is appealing to my partner or whatever. So soon it won't be a training wheel anymore. And now you can actually start picking out your partner's gifts on your own. Oh, I get how, like, you know, maybe have AI, sure, write a few poems about whatever, and then look at them, and then kind of like use that to like fuel and encourage some things, like, oh, this is cool. Now I'm gonna write my own poem. Was it inspired by AI type of poems? Yes, sure. But at the end of the day, like, that only taught me how to do what I now want to do. But I feel like a lot of people, there is just kind of like, when, you know, you're the nerd, or not even nerd, but like, you know, the person who does well in class, and then you like, people are like, hey, can you like do my homework for me? And you just do the homework for them and then let them get the grade, but then they fail the test, you know. Whereas instead of like actually like sure, I can help you with your homework, but I want you to actually understand the material so that when the test actually comes, you can actually do that by yourself and not need to like cheat in that way. Because now, you know, if you've been writing all of these poems or writing all of these raps using AI or like getting all these great gifts, and then just out of nowhere, like your partner's like, oh, you know, what gift do you think that we can get so and so for their birthday since you're so good at getting gifts? You're like,
I know.
you know,
That'd be such
yeah,
an
it's like,
awkward one.
yeah, it's like, you're not about to pull out your phone right now and be like, hey, like, you know, you have to be able to like actually learn the method behind what the AI is doing. So we can use AI as a teacher in many cases. You know, if you're using it like for the art and everything, it's like, oh, I would have never considered this style of art for whatever, but I like that. Let me try and replicate it on my own rather than just taking it and being like, hey, thanks, and then turning it in. Like, again, that person just did your homework and then you turn that in. It's like, let me actually like learn how you did that so that I don't need you anymore.
I agree, and it should be used as a way to learn something. And like Lilette said, it can also be used to be comfortable, and that can be kind of dangerous because instead of sitting with your pain, you can numb yourself with technology because it's ever entertaining. Like sometimes people flirt with AI just to see how it'll react. You can ask the AI any question you want. And so it's really easy to forget life's problems by diving into the internet because there are endless rabbit holes you can really go down. And so it is addictive. They say that love, it activates the same receptors as meth does in your brain. And I think also technology might also activate something equally as addictive in a way too. And so in a way, don't get addicted to your crutch is the question.
Yeah, yeah. It's, you know, stay out of your comfort zone. There's consumers. Consumers are just not going to be as, they might even forget how to create. You know, I think there's a lot of things in our lives that are already automated, and we don't even know it. And how are those things affecting us? You know, I think we just have to keep on pushing the limits, right? And there's, you know, there's that ethical element there too. AI is here to stay. I love that we have all of this opportunity in front of us to hopefully, you know, the ideal state would be to remove people from mindless jobs so that we can truly come into our potential as a species. You know, like we shouldn't be doing what we don't want to do. We should be doing the stuff AI can't do, and we should be free to create. You know, I wonder all the time. We have so many resources in this world, like an abundance of things. I think the distribution of it could be greatly helped by AI, for example. Like our distribution processes suck so badly, and that could be like there are certain things that could be done with AI and that should be embraced. But we should also, like, this whole consumer culture is a brain killer. You know, it's just brain junk food. So I think really thinking about what can we make, what can we do that's outside of what is presented to us, and because we're forgetting, right? The average person is forgetting how to start things on their own. And I think that's really the biggest thing that, number one, makes the most money, right? Like, can you actually create something that is revolutionary, right? That is going to actually be useful and fill a niche, a gap that's truly needed, instead of doing the same thing over and over again. And there's money in that too, but like creating something is so much harder. And so this being complacent and being fed show after show on Netflix, or, you know, short after short on like that, there's so many hours every single day and that adds up, and then all of a sudden we're just the average Joe Jane person at the end of our lives having done nothing significant, you know, in my opinion. So maybe a comfortable life, but nothing of that actually challenged the essence of what it means to be human.
Well said. I think AI, it does a lot of amazing things for us. I guess when we talk about the dark side, like what you were saying, sometimes I wonder if it's used to commercialize or commodify. Like almost for some AI companies, they might even try to take advantage of vulnerable populations, like the love bots. Like, why aren't we creating maid bots where someone can do all of the mundane tasks for you?
Exactly. Let's
You can
switch
see the other one.
gears. That's
Yeah,
all we gotta do. We gotta switch the gears.
because the love
We
market
can't let
makes
it
more
happen.
money.
Yeah. I think the complacency thing is such a killer. We just let this stuff happen right under
Yeah.
our noses. We need more creators out there, more makers.
Yeah, and let it be a crutch instead of a wheelchair, and then use that crutch to then walk. Is the ENTJ independent, put yourself, grab your bootstraps and get up there kind of mentality?
Mhm. So, as especially in the NTJ, and going off of like what you were saying at the beginning, with like being able to control your future and everything, with all that's been said so far, what ideas do you have on being able to protect ourselves from all of that's been mentioned, and then not only protecting ourselves, but then also stewarding this new rise of artificial intelligence, um, and being able to, yeah, like kind of like go forth in the way that you've been describing. Like, in what ways would you say that that's actually something that we could do in a practical manner with everything that's happening, at least to the best of our ability?
I feel like I have something, but I need time to just there's something there and I just need to it just needs to do its thing. Shoot, Denzel, this might just be an email.
Take your time.
But
And maybe you would have to think about it, and the people watching might not have, maybe this is more of like an exploration video and not really like we have all the answers. NJs, I guess, not always have all the answers. But yeah, like this is stuff that I've been like really thinking through myself. I know that we focused a lot on AI, but really like
Mhm.
we're talking about technology in general.
Mhm.
Looking at Black Mirror, we always see like those episodes, and like we see a lot of this already coming. Like,
Mhm.
oh, they're soon. Eventually, they will be making like kind of like that one episode where it's like the spouse died, but then they were able to like download the contents of like his brain or whatever, like everything that he's ever posted online, all his text messages, into like some chip so that it could simulate her speaking to her spouse. And then they, for an upgrade, she was able to seemingly like talk to him on the phone because it used like his voice. And with what we've seen with AI right now, it can definitely do that. And I don't think that it can get to the ending. With spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this old Black Mirror episode, like at the ending, it actually ended up with like the woman like buying like a fake body, pretty much, that, so it's almost like she was hanging out with her husband like all over again and all that.
Oh my
It's like,
gosh.
yeah, we all know about the movie. Well, maybe we don't all know about it, but like one of my favorite movies, actually, the movie Her. And I think that has an amazing outlook on artificial intelligence, especially in how it ended, where artificial intelligence itself saw that, like, hey, you guys are not really even ready for us right now because it's changing,
I
like
love that.
involving, yeah, like that you
I
guys
love
need
that,
to
yeah.
like do, because it got so smart in and of itself. So it's like, okay, thinking about all of this, it's like, how will we actually be able to like regulate? Because like, again, yeah, I've been thinking about a lot of these things myself, even with the controversial things that we're talking about, like with Taylor Swift, Halle Bailey, Meg Thee Stallion, and I was like wondering, like, okay, where do we draw the line? Like, if somebody was to draw stick figures of their favorite actress or actor, sleeping with them or something like that, do they get punished for that? Okay, well, what if they now make like a realistic painting or something, do they get punished for that? Okay, well, now if they make AI, like an AI version of it, but then they keep it to themselves and it looks really real. Obviously, like if you don't get caught, you can't, like you can't get arrested. But hypothetically, if they were to get caught with it, but they haven't posted anywhere, like would that get them in trouble? Is it now the problem when they do post it? And on top of that, like if they post it, then like where does it end? Like because there's just so many different things that can come with that. Like how will I know there's ways in which you can copy and paste certain things and put it into something, and then it's able to tell you like, oh, this is actually AI, which blows my mind. I don't know how it's done yet, but it's like, okay, that gives me a little bit of hope for like, okay, there's ways to be like so far for certain things to be able to tell like, oh, this is generated by AI. Even like this poem that somebody wrote, like if it's highlighted, all the parts that are highlighted in yellow is artificial intelligence, stuff like that. But will the creators be able to even find out how that works and then be able to beat that? So how can we then protect ourselves from that? Like how can we continue to critical think in that sense? What are the regulations? Once again, like, so all of these things are definitely things that I'm continuing to think about. How can we continue to learn from AI, because it's not going anywhere. And I think that's the biggest thing. There's a lot of people who are complaining about it and everything's like, no, we need to stop. It's not going to go anywhere. So how can we then continue to use it to our advantage?
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And I think and I realized I do have a bias in this, right? Everybody has a different take on just like, okay, what do I do with AI? Well, if your angle is to improve people's lives, say maybe like you've got like an FE kind of goal, it's that advice is going to look a little bit different. You're going to be more in a different area addressing different problems, right? And I think I definitely I have this bias, very much attention to like, how can you control your own destiny and make sure you're not being molded by this machine that you've been born into from day one, and I think that like both need you need that, like how should we run things as a whole, and then also individually, like how can you maintain your own mind, literally making sure and I think for some people, depending on how deep they are, it's a paradigm shift, because maybe it is asking a lot to break out of like what or it's like, oh, why do I have to create things? It's like, you could grow a garden. My mom grows a garden, she's that is creating something, so it doesn't have to be crazy grand or anything like that, but it has to be something that is like under your control. I think we're just picked up by the waves of tech that's moving much too fast for us right now, to understand like what's going to happen next. But yeah, as a whole, like just ethically too, that's going to be a tough one, Denzel, because most of our leadership right now does not even understand how Facebook works. So we're going to have a problem. Probably it's going to be this uncontrolled for the next 30 years, unless it affects their money pouch. So
30 years, the ENTJ says.
Ooh, and when you work at a tech company, that says something, that they only know how to use Facebook so far.
Do not take this.
Don't even know how to use Facebook. That's the oldest one.
But it is kind of, I do wish we had more people who understood technology, period, at the baseline, because it's not even really a topic. So yeah, there's no regulations. If we had people who are more informed in leadership, there would be a lot more movement on this, because it is important. But yeah, there'd be a lot more movement on many things.
Well, for those watching, sorry for such a bleak ending, but if you can hang around for 30 years, we'll probably get this all under control.
choice.
Yeah. That's incentive to watch this show for 30 years. Yes. Yeah, I find like either people can't stop talking about AI or like there's this dead silence around AI. I have friends who work at tech companies and they can be deathly silent about AI because I think there's a fear that it might take over your job or other things. So, but for other people, it's like, wow, this is the growing edge. And so you get to learn about all these different stances and how us humans are interacting with it. Yeah, and I think Lilette's final stance of you either shape your usage of AI or AI will start to shape you
Exactly.
is
That's it.
very true. Yeah.
Yeah, which yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's easy for us NI users to say like, so watch how it's planting seeds or like affecting your mind or whatever like that.
Right.
But yeah, for those who don't maybe naturally use NI, I mean, everybody uses NI to an extent. So for those who may not like use it as a higher up, yeah, I think that Lilette's caution is to be careful of what it's doing to you, like how it's molding you. You don't have to become paranoid of it, but just be careful. In the same sense that I know that growing up, there were certain imagery. I was always just aware of like subliminal messages. Like I could be watching a show or a movie, and I'm aware of like, oh, this is the subliminal message that it's planting or incepting in my mind. And if I don't like, sometimes I'll be like, okay, I don't really mind that message being implanted there. And then sometimes I'm like, oh no, I don't like that. And so I like take it and I discard it. That can be a tiring process for a lot of people. They just want to like watch the thing for what it is, SE necessarily. But like if you become a little bit more aware, a little bit more mindful of your day to day of like, okay, how is technology, for lack of better term, shaping, just because I can't think of the word, like how is
Yeah.
technology like shaping me right now? I think that's like a word that like, I think that that's a thought that our viewers can really think about, like whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on Tinder, whether you're using Chat GPT, like think about like, okay, wait, how can I be utilizing this in a wiser way that's not going to affect me worse later? That's not going to kill my creativity slowly. That's not going to make me become lazy in a sense. Like let me actually like continue to keep my mind sharp in this way. And I feel like as you continue to like think about like, oh, this is how technology is apparently like affecting my mind or shaping my mind in a sense, then that can really help us with our day-to-day use of technology.
Yeah, because there's so many opportunities, right? Like it's obviously going to make a lot of things better. And then there's question marks on what it's going to do. But yeah, just don't leave yourself in the question mark. Use it, but don't let it use you.
Precisely. Awesome. Well, if we do not have any more thoughts, going once, going twice.
Oh, I have so much more. This was an introduction, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the last thought is AI is being used a lot in type. Like Dario Nardi teaches you how to like do research, and then you can aggregate all the information using AI. Because previously, qualitative data is really hard to sort because it's like thousands and thousands of boring points. But now that you have the drunk elf of AI, you don't have to do the detailed works of doing it. So you can do the fun big picture stuff if you want. So AI is really what you make it. And so
exactly.
Just make sure that you actually are aware of how you're making it and what it's making you. I think that's the biggest thing.
That's really the biggest takeaway, I think, is what we is what we've
pay attention to
here.
your mind.
Yeah. What are you doing? Are you wanting this?
Yeah. But awesome. Well, Lilette, I'm really glad that we were able to have this conversation today. And yeah, I'm glad that you are continuing to allow the knife show to like move forward. I told Lilette that for those who are still continuing to keep up with this channel that with me and Joyce, I always want to make sure that the videos and the topics that we choose are like quality and timeless. So that way, like, nobody's just like watching it. Like, how there's like filler episodes for like anime and stuff like, oh, okay, they just kind of like, I don't want the knife show to have filler topics or filler episodes. So a lot of times there might be like gaps. I guess kind of like Black Mirror, like where sometimes it'll only have like 4 episodes a season, and then sometimes it takes like a year or two for them to drop a season. But then, at least to mine, like from how I see it, like the seasons are pretty like quality. So I think that this is also like another quality episode because again, we are all about like, you know, figuring out like how society is being impacted. And I think that having an NT here who actually works in tech and everything like that, it's like, you know, that really does bring like its own spin to the episode. So again, I'm really glad that we were able to have you today.
Thank you so much,
It's
Denzel.
a joy to have your feisty spirit on board.
We didn't see much of that in this episode, but maybe in the future, guys, stay tuned for the next 30 years. All right. With all of that said, thank y'all everyone for watching. And
until next time, stay sharp.
Yes.
また夜が明ければ